The following clip is presented to you by The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, available every Friday wherever you get your podcasts and at extremehardy.com. He makes his TNA debut June 23rd, 2004. He's facing AJ Styles for the X Division Championship as a surprise, and it's actually the debut of the now famous charismatic Enigma moniker that he took on. I remember this. It was a pretty big deal when he showed up there. Jeff was still a big name coming into TNA as they were trying to attract more names.
Right.
What was the reception like for his arrival there as far as you saw it from your perspective? And what did you think of him getting an opportunity there?
Obviously, I think they were very excited to have Jeff because Jeff is a big star and he had a lot of name value at that time. I just would imagine they were hoping he was going to keep between the lines. And I'll tell you this too, John. I actually expedited a lot of him going to TNA. I had conversations with Jeff Jarrett about having Jeff go there because I thought just him having some constructive work to do would make sure he kind of stays a little more straight or continues to clean up his life or like move in the right direction. So I wanted him busy. I didn't want him just sitting at home with nothing to do. I feel like that's when a lot of people get worse. I wanted him to have some responsibility, something to do. So I definitely spoke with Jeff Jarrett a lot. And then obviously, with Jeff as well, like I kind of helped set all that things up, set that up. His coming to TNA in 2004. Is that when it was?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Was Jeff Jarrett open at first to bringing Jeff in?
Yeah, I mean, he was right from the jump. I mean, Jeff Jarrett's a smart businessman, as we've said to ad nauseum here on the podcast. But yeah, he definitely knew that having Jeff Hardy on your show was going to be very beneficial for it.
What do you think that TNA run did for him as a performer?
I think probably more than anything, that TNA run that he had then in 2004, 2005, 2006, just let him kind of get back to some of the basics of wrestling, which is him kind of creating himself and having a lot of creative control of what he's doing. So he's like having fun a little more. And I think it probably rejuvenated his love of pro wrestling. Because at WWE, especially back in the day, it was very easy to get burnt out there very, very quick. And I think Jeff had got burnt out with that, and especially with the schedule and whatnot. Now he's working a much lighter schedule. He had a lot more say in what he was doing. He felt like he was being creative once again. So I think it helped reinvigorate his love of pro wrestling.
This is probably not something a lot of people think about on the surface, but it's a big adjustment going into TNA at that time, if for anything, because it's the six-sided ring. And Jeff is a high flyer. I imagine he probably hadn't done too much work with a six-sided ring. Did he ever mention to you anything around that time of having to adjust himself to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for most people, it's a little bit of an adjustment. It's so weird. You get used to it pretty quickly, though, if you really commit yourself. But I do remember even when we sort of said in the beginning with the six-sided ring, he was like, man, I just wish they'd have a regular ring. I wish they'd just have a four-sided ring. And I'm sure there were a lot of people that thought that, but also I do think, kudos to Jeff Jarrett, that six-sided ring really gave TNA an identity in the early days.
Is there a benefit to a six-sided ring versus a four-sided ring?
I mean, it just makes you look different, I think, okay. From a vision perspective. I mean, it obviously looks different. It kind of sets you apart. If someone sees a six-sided ring, I don't think they're automatically going to go, is that WWF? Is that right. WWE? I mean, right. It's different, especially here in the United States. So I think that was a beneficial thing about it. As far as like as far as it being a better working ring than a four-sided ring, I don't think it is. The ropes are harder. It's easy to get a little more confused in which direction you're going with whoever your dance partner is in the ring. So it can be tricky, but it was unique because it gave them their own identity.
People might not understand, or trying to educate here, by the way, guys. People might not understand why the six-sided ring is a little more difficult. There's more tension on the ropes, so they're going to be a little stiffer. And how does the angle affect if you're coming off the top or coming off the middle rope? Because it's not a 90-degree angle, you're split much more open.
Yeah, I mean that obviously is different, so that feels a little different. So a lot of guys probably get used to doing that, but it's also when you're shooting someone into the ropes, sometimes it's very confusing because these ropes are much shorter. Four-sided ring. Like if you grab someone and start shooting them in a direction of four-sided ring, they're 99% going to know which direction they're going in. If you're doing that six-sided ring, then the percentage drops a lot lower because it is a little more difficult and the ropes are a lot shorter.
Interesting. I just thought that was worth talking about, knowing what Jeff does in his matches, and if he's doing a whisper in the wind and he's got to climb up the turnbuckles really quickly, that's probably a lot hard to do in a six-sided ring.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was okay on it though. I think he was all right.
He's pretty good. So that he's pretty good at wrestling. So
as Eddie Guerrero would say, better than nothing.
He'd even be part of a match that I'm sure you wish you had been part of in TNA, because it's actually Randy Savage's last match. It's the sixth man. Jeff is teaming with AJ Styles and Macho Man against Jeff Jarrett, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash. Talk about talent in a match. This feels like a fever dream. How jealous were you that you didn't get to compete with Savage, your hero there, Matt?
Yeah, I was positively envious that Jeff got that match. And also he just shared a lot of very funny Macho Man Randy Savage stories at different times while they were working together. When Macho Man was talking about going off the top turnbuckle to the floor, he said, well, I would do the X handle, but my knees would pop out of my legs, brother. Just he had a lot of fun, cute stories with Macho Man. And I was jealous Jeff got to do that. I thought that was really cool.
Crazy that that's Macho Man's last match in some weird one-off thrown together TNA match. But you got the Click there, you got Jeff Jarrett, you got AJ Styles. Legit Hall of Famers across the board in one match. That's pretty impressive. In 2005, though, things start to go downhill a little bit. He no-shows a few dates with TNA. He claims travel difficulties is the reason, and is eventually suspended at year's end. And in June of 2006, after some more no-shows, he would be released. Were those actual travel difficulties, or had he fallen a little bit headspace-wise?
That could have been part of the problem, but also part of the problem was he wasn't where he needed to be in life. He was still slipping. He had done some backsliding, and it was just one of those things. All during that time, that entire run. I mean, there were times where he was really good, but I was always concerned and I was always worried about him. And I remember there was one point when he'd missed some of those flights, and I was getting called, a guy who works for WWE from TNA, like, hey, where's your brother at? Where's your brother at? From several people in management or whatever. And, then I would try to do what I could, to locate him and whatnot. I mean, there was a time during that point where I told Jeff, I said, dude, like, I'll tell you right now, if you'll go to rehab, I'll pay for it. I want you to be okay. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be good. That's how concerned I was about him during that time. But in Jeff's defense, once Jeff said like he was done and he was going to quit doing what he was doing at that time, he did. And he ended up like half-ass quitting cold turkey, which is crazy. A lot of guys can't do that, but Jeff was able to do that then.
And we're talking substances here, correct?
Yeah. Substances, and a lot of recreational stuff too at that time. So this was one of the scariest times of my life, as far as being concerned about my brother and his actual health.
Did he take you up on that offer to go to rehab?
He did not.